Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
Yes, and we are here. We're very glad to be with you for this episode. And we were just talking about this before we went on the air, but this is our Week 5 episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I'm Matt Davis, got Ian Griffin with me. Week 5? That
Week
doesn't
5.
sound right.
How'd that
I'm
happen?
not saying that right, am I?
How'd that happen?
My goodness.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is more region games in the mix for some regions and whatnot. Some haven't gotten into that part of the schedule yet, but some have. So a lot at stake in the games we're going to talk about today. And we're going to have a good time talking about the matchups because each and every week we have been very fortunate to have some really competitive games to discuss.
Yeah.
So I thought one of the things that we could do right out of the gate, as we do each and every week on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group, is to talk about the previous week's games and also the results of our picks, which
of course you want to discuss that.
No, I'm actually not trying to rub it in. I'm really not. But I was 5-2 last week. You were 3-4. We had two differences, and the two differences I had Ridgeland beating Coosa. You had Coosa. Ridgeland won that game, and then the other one was Cartersville and Calhoun. Close game,
very close. 38-35. The Canes ended up winning that one, I believe. So, yeah. I went the other way. I knew it was going to be close, but taking the road team there was a little risky.
So with that said, overall, I am 28-8 or 20-8, and you're 16-12. So anyway,
still above the Mendoza line at least.
There's
time.
There's
time.
Yeah. It's tough to be down that many games, but gosh, we've still got over half the season left for most teams, and then we'll have some playoffs and stuff like that. So you could chip away, and we may have some differences this week. Who knows what will happen? But we've already mentioned the fact that Cartersville beat Calhoun. We mentioned that Ridgeland came up with a win over Coosa. What jumped off the page at you about the action that took place last week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game between Cedartown and Pepperell that came down to a single point. Cedartown edged the Dragons 28-27. You know, and you've got to decide how you look at that. If you're a Dragons fan, I mean, I think going on the road, and I know you don't want to celebrate a loss by any means, and they've lost a lot of close games, which is tough. But that's a really good Cedartown team, and they fought them to the bitter end. So I think you've got to take some positives from that. And then on the other side, great win for Tommy Atha.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And, of course, for people who haven't heard how that game ended up, Pepperell had a chance to win the game at the end of the game. They could kick, of course, an extra point, play for overtime, or go for the win. Love the gutsy call for Coach Haywood and his staff to try to get the win right there on the road.
On the road especially. On the road especially. If you've got that opportunity, you go for it. You do.
You absolutely
100%.
have to take it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. So I know, obviously, when you have a situation like that, people have different opinions, but I'm a big fan of the call personally to try to win the game regardless of the outcome there.
Right. I think if you're at home, and it depends on the flow of the game too.
Yes.
If you're coming from behind, in my opinion, and you've got a chance to just go ahead and close it out, even at home, I'm not going to argue with that. But especially on the road, when you're in, like you said, in a hostile environment like that, you want to go ahead and you got one play to win the game. And it's unfortunately for the Dragons, it didn't go their way, but I like the aggressive play call in there. 100%.
And on the other side of the coin, you know, for Coach Atha's team to step up, even up their season record for the year, 2-2, a couple of wins under their belt, young team, comes up with a stop there at the end of the game, gets to celebrate. That's one of those things that can be huge for a program in terms of building momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the season didn't start the way they wanted it with the Rockmart game, where it was one of those games where injuries and and miscues, everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and Rockmart took advantage of it. But they've edged their way back to 500 as they get ready for region play. And young team, but they've got a chance to have a special season still.
Absolutely. One of the games that we're going to talk about in more detail a little bit later on, because we're going to pick a game involving the team I'm about to bring up. But I know a game that you were at this past weekend, because we had a bye week with Darlington football, but the Rome Wolves notched their first win. And my goodness, I mean, really, really, that offense exploded in the third quarter of the game. So I need to hear more about this, man.
Well, yeah, Toombs came out and hit a couple, connected on a few right crosses and uppercuts, and punched Rome in the mouth a little bit. And Rome had some miscues in the first half, went into the locker room down 21-7, and came out and just absolutely dominated, outscored Toombs 42-7 in the second half, forced some big turnovers on defense. Aiden McPherson had a whale of a ball game, getting the ball out to his receivers, took some deep shots, got the ball to him in space. They made big plays in special teams. It was just a real team effort from Rome, and just another example. We knew this. John Reed he's a heck of a motivator. They went in the locker room. Kudos to him and his staff for getting things right there and coming out and just executing, beating a really good Toombs team.
And another situation there that, worth pointing out on this, we were talking about this with Cedartown, but with Rome, being young in some spots and all that sort of stuff, getting that first win against a quality opponent in Toombs County, the way they turned that game around, you wonder what a critical juncture in the season that could be for this team. To kind of get over the hump in a win like that.
Well, I think when East Paulding's going to be a tough test as well. This is a good Raiders team that they're going to have on Friday night. But when you look at their schedule and you look at how brutal it was these first four games, you feel good about their chances. But getting these wins early as they go into a region, I think that they can dominate is huge for their confidence and huge for how they'll perform when they get to the playoffs later this season.
Well, before we take our first break, we're going to run down the list of games that we're going to be talking about today. But anything else about last week's action in particular that you want to point out?
I was surprised at I picked Coosa to win the game. But we both know we've seen Ridgeland, and if you follow football around the state, I think a lot of people, and we may sound like a broken record here, but people think the Panthers are just terrible. They are not terrible, and I think Coosa is way better than that score indicates. I was surprised that it was as lopsided as it was.
No, I would agree with you 100%. If there's a team that's in the running this year for most improved, you can definitely throw Ridgeland's name in the hat, and I think that was just more confirmation of what we thought already, like you say. With the way that they picked up the victory against Coosa, that definitely jumps off the page for sure.
And also, let's close out with last week's action by giving Coach Patrick a pat on the back. Lost 16 guys who are major contributors. I think 18 seniors from last year's squad total, and the Bulldogs are getting better every week. I knew that game with Model was going to be close, but that to me is an impressive win for a very, very young trying team.
I would agree 100%. Yeah. Well, here is a list of the games that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to start in just a little bit with Fidelis Christian Rangers. I believe that's how you say that. They're going to be playing Unity. Unity plays their home games out at Coosa on Branch Bragg Field. Got an arrangement there, which worked out very well. We're going to talk about the Coosa Eagles. They're hitting the road to Blairsville, and then they're going to Fannin County to take on the Rebels. You've got the Darlington Tigers going to Whitfield Academy, which is in Mableton. Very tough matchup coming up there. Rockmart Yellow Jackets are going to Blairsville. Got ahead of myself there. They're going to Union County to take on the Panthers. You've got the Cedartown Bulldogs playing against Allatoona down at Allatoona. And then the Rome Wolves. Interesting storylines in this game, heading to East Paulding to take on the Raiders. So we got a great slate of games coming up. And then one of the games that we were going to pick today, and Ian and I were talking about this just a couple of hours ago, just don't feel right about picking the game involving Almerchi coming up this weekend. We were talking about the just absolutely unspeakable, tragic accident that took place in the last 24 hours where a student was lost from Almerchi High School. I understand that, and I don't know all the details of this, so I won't get too far into that. I've heard some different reports and things of that nature, but involved, a couple of Almerchi students and things like that. So it's just one of those things. It just feels, inappropriate. I don't know what the word I'm looking for there to predict a game in such a trivial type thing, or something serious that's going on with that. So we just didn't want to dive into that one too much and pick the game.
And we just hope that it's a chance for the Armuchee community to come together and find something positive to be able to support each other at that event. And who cares who wins? Everybody's rooting for the Indians. That's what I would say.
I would agree with you 100%. And again, we just want to send out our prayers and our hearts go out to the families that are dealing with that tragic situation. I can't even wrap my mind around it for a second, because both of us are parents, and the one phone call that you never want to get when you're a parent is the one that some families got this past weekend. So I really don't know what else to say about it. Really.
Yeah. Our heart goes out to the tribe.
Our condolences, no doubt about that. Yeah. So. Anyway, with that said, I think that is a good place for us to take a break. And we're going to do that, and we're going to come back and talk about this slate of games. We're glad you're with us here on WLAQ and this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. It's Week 5. We'll be right back.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to our Week 5 edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And there's one thing left to do, Matt. It's picking time.
It is picking time, so let's do some picking, I reckon. But we will go ahead and jump into the list of games for today. And I'll tell you a little bit about this matchup, and we'll get Ian on the other side of the table to chime in with his pick first. But we're going to talk about the Fidelis Christian Rangers. And the Rangers are going to be playing against Unity Christian School, the Lions, coming up this weekend. That'll be out at Coosa High School. The Lions are on a pretty good trajectory. They're 3-0 in, 1-0 in their region. Fidelis has been heading in the opposite direction, 0-3 and 0-2 so far this season. So I want to get your take on this game, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. The Lions are on fire. And while we have all become accustomed to these offenses scoring tons of points, 7 points is all this defense has given up over the first 3 games, and they've played some good teams. They are shutting people down on the opposite side of the ball, and the offense with Miles Schwartz at quarterback, they're getting more and more comfortable and starting to score even more points as well. So that is a bad recipe for the Rangers. And this game, I know they play out at Coosa, but this is the second season that they've played games out at Branch Bragg, and I feel like they're feeling at home when they're out there at Coosa, and the fans will be there to support. I think the Lions don't just win, but name the score. And let's see if they give up any points, because Fidelis has not been great on offense, so this could be another goose egg. Who knows?
It very well could be, and to your point on that, Unity has outscored their opponents 157-7, pitched those 2 shutouts. Maybe, I don't know the story there, they might could have pitched a third. So nobody's been able to score on them. Plus, they're scoring a lot on offense. The Rangers, they played strong on defense, to your point, but they're giving up an average they're giving up some points. So, or rather, they're not scoring a lot of points, giving up a few points here and there. But nonetheless, they haven't been able to produce the kind of points that it takes to get a win in 9-man football. And that's something Unity's been able to do, and they're shutting teams down. So I think this one's hands down going to be a victory for Unity.
It's weird because they've been so successful over the past several seasons, but something feels extra special about this Unity team this year.
It's interesting too, because obviously last year they graduated a quarterback who'd been really special to the program, and you were breaking in a new quarterback. It took a little bit of time for them to get a feel for what that was going to be like. and it's worked out wonderfully the last couple of games, and they've really been clipping on offense and that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what they accomplish throughout the year. I agree with you on that one. All right, next game on the list that we're going to talk about is going to be the Coosa Eagles going to Fannin County to take on the Rebels. Fannin leads the series 2-0. They won last year 42-0. And we've seen a Coosa team that struggled to keep teams out of the end zone the last couple of weeks with Ridgeland and then Model. Some teams that have some firepower, but teams that they've been competitive with in recent years. So obviously some work to do, particularly on the defensive side of the ball there. And this Fannin County team at 1-2, it looks like they've maybe dropped off a little bit from where they've been in recent years, but I still think they're a really competitive football team. So this could be another tough task coming up for the Coosa Eagles.
Yeah, I don't think these Rebels, as you said, are as good as we've been accustomed to the past 5 or 6 seasons, where they've just been one of the best teams in our neck of the woods for sure. Their 2 losses came to the hands of 2 good teams, Gilmer. And then you had Rabun County as well. So those are good programs. They did beat them pretty badly. So I wonder what the Rebels have here. But this game is up in Blue Ridge. They've got to make the road trip, the Eagles do. And as you mentioned, Charlie Cannon and the offense, they've had some success for sure, but the defense has struggled to keep other teams out of the end zone, and I think that the Rebels will prove to be too much for the Coosa Eagles.
Yeah, I really feel like if Coosa is going to win this game, they're going to have to do it without offense, because I think Fannin County is going to find a way to score some points, and they got to be able to match them score for score to stay in the ball game. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to go with Fannin County in this football game to pick up a victory. And again, we'll just have to keep an eye on that and see how it goes, man. Absolutely. You never know. We'll go ahead and pick another game. We're glad you're with us on this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football that you can watch live on YouTube and Facebook Live each and every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We've got the Coach Grove Show coming up in just a little bit, so getting our football coverage for the week started here on a Wednesday evening.
Yes, we are. You
could be listening on the radio ahead of the games. But let's talk about this next game. We're not going to pick this one before we take this break, but we're going to talk about the Darlington Tigers. They were idle last week. They get back into action this week against Whitfield Academy. Interesting part of this matchup is that this will be, of course, the first week, 2 trips down to Mount Vernon. So you're in the Atlanta area. Go back the next week, go to North Cobb Christian. Finally get a home game. It goes to 4 overtimes. Darlington gets the win there, moves the season record to 2-1. And guess what? You have a bye week, you turn around, you get in the car, and you're going to Mableton, which is over near Six Flags, kind of in that area, so back to Atlanta. So I've kind of dubbed this Darlington team this year the ultimate road warriors, because that's what they've been.
Yeah.
So
no doubt. And I'm wondering, when are you buying the WLAQ condo somewhere in the suburbs of Atlanta?
We've been going with them.
So, I know. So, absolutely. Another road trip, and what a weird scenario with them only playing 4 home games this season. That's nuts to me. So the Tigers are the definition of road warriors. And the last time we saw the Darlington Tigers, let's just take a minute to talk about that gutsy performance that we saw. You had Levi Duggan out with broken fingers. Nate Konchesky steps in, plays a whale of a ball game, goes down on a go-ahead touchdown. They have to go to their third-string quarterback, Jace Donaldson, Mr. Everything, put him wherever he's going to be successful. And they gutted one out and found a way to win in quadruple overtime, 44-42. And then a much-needed bye week last week before this trip to Whitfield Academy. How healthy will the Tigers be? I think that plays a big role in their chances here. And then the Wolfpack might be the best team they've played this year too. I'm not sure. North Cobb may be in that category as well, but I think this is a really good football team. So Darlington is going to have to play Coach Grove's game, ball security, clock control on offense, and they got to win the hitting game. If they're gonna beat Whitfield, they're going to have to play their best game, and I think they're going to have to get some of the guys back to get it done.
I would agree. It's going to be a tough matchup, no doubt. Wolfpack lost a 2-score game to Savannah Christian, which is a top 10 program. They've been very good in recent years. Otherwise, won overwhelmingly over a Mount Vernon team that we saw. It's got some playmakers on that team. That stands out. They won a couple of scores over Social Circle. They have been a playoff team for the last 8 years. These two teams have faced off 5 times. Wolfpack leads the series 3-2. Tigers won a close one last year, 27-20. And again, to your point, the question mark, the big one for Darlington is how many guys are dressing out for the game.
Yeah.
I mean, they started with 40 players this year. I think in the last game there was like 28 guys that were available for that game. So hopefully the bye week gave them a breather, gave them an opportunity to get some guys back. We'll see what happens when they suit up and get ready to go in that game. They know a little bit more coming up today on the Coach Grove Show. We'll see. But I think that the one thing that we've learned about this Darlington Tigers group, they're not backing down from anybody.
Heck no.
They're going to suit up, and no matter who's on the field, they're going to fight until the bitter end of the football game. When you got kids that are willing to do that and step up and have that next man up mentality, you never know what can happen. So even though this is one of those situations where a lot of people are probably going to consider the Darlington Tigers the underdog, I can tell you some folks that aren't going to consider them that.
The
Darlington Tigers. They're coming to play.
Yeah.
So I look forward to the matchup. I look forward to watching this team every time they play. We always leave the games fired up and inspired. And last week was a perfect game to exemplify that feeling. I mean, there was a buzz in the stadium after they picked up that win. And the way that, Ridgeland was able to take care of business against a Coosa team that I think is pretty good. I think that shows you how far along this Ridgeland team is to getting that program back where it needs to be. So that win looks even better, I think,
it sure does.
for the Darlington Tigers after that. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
It is.
We don't pick the ones we call, but we believe in the Tigers.
Indeed.
Leave it at that. All right, so we've picked most of the games.
That's right. We've got 3 left when we come back from the break. So we'll get the breakdown. Rockmart at Union County, Cedartown at Allatoona, and Rome at East Paulding.
Man, there's some good ones coming up on the list. So what we'll do is take a break and come back and discuss those and then wrap up. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football and the Week 5 edition, and we've already got our John J. Rambo message here from Kelly Fountain and a nod to a Halloween costume that Coach Groves had when he was a kid, and a reference that comes up when we talk about him quite a bit.
That's right.
The legend lives on.
That's right.
All right, we're going to be back. We're glad you are with us.
Are you shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Riverside Auto Group has a location to meet your needs. Browse their selection online at riversideautogroup.com or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, Riverside Nissan in Rome, or Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group.
Welcome back, WLA crew. We're glad to have you with us
The Q
tonight.
crew.
That's right. The Q crew is tuned in and ready for our final 3 picks. And boy, we have some tasty, tasty games on the menu.
We really do. And anytime Union County pops up in a matchup, it's storytelling time. Because I've been to Union County one time, and that was with the Model Blue Devils back in 2014. So it's been over a decade ago. And the Blue Devils got their first playoff win in a long time. So that was probably the most memorable part of it. But the second most memorable part, and pretty close second, was it was the coldest I have ever been broadcasting any sporting event ever. We were in November, record low temperatures going on around the area. We're up there in the North Georgia mountains in Blairsville. We knew it was going to be the case, so I was prepared for it. There was no preparing for it. We were in an outdoor press box. We were just sitting out in the stands, and it was so cold by the time we got to halftime. I always keep notes about scoring drives and stuff like that during the game, and just notes that I want to make sure I remember about the game. And by the time we got to halftime, I could no longer take notes because the ink in my ink pens had completely frozen. That's how cold it was. But Model got it done and picked up a victory. But what a great backdrop to go to a high school football game in the North Georgia mountains. Rockmart is going up there, and they are going there with a 2-1 record, 1-0 in region play. Union County's 1-2. They're also 1-0. in region play. Series history, Rockmart leads at 2-0. They won last year 26-12. It was a bit more lopsided the year before that, if I remember correctly. How do you see this one, man?
Yeah, Yellow Jackets are coming off a hard-fought victory against Ringgold. We thought that game would be close. It was. Ringgold fought to the bitter end, but the Yellow Jackets got the best of them. Union County, as you mentioned, 1-2, but I don't think you can go in and expect them to not give Rockmart their best shot. It's a road game. I tell you what, though, last week when I looked at the stats, I was impressed to see the balance that Rockmart had offensively. Listen to this stat. Out of their total yards, 227 passing, 235 on the ground in the contest. Again, I think Union County is better than their 1-2 record, but they're going to be 1-3. And I like the fact that Rockmart can go out there and get it done on the ground or through the air.
I would agree. When you reel off that stat, how often do you see a high school team that is that balanced?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't see that often. And the other thing that jumps off the page, and this is from the Georgia High School Football Daily, so credit where credit's due for the research that they put into that. And if you haven't subscribed to that, I certainly urge you that you sign up for it, because it's in your inbox every single day during the football season. First thing I see and read and all that kind of stuff, and you can kind of geek out on what's going on in the high school football world around the state of Georgia. But something they had in their little blurb about the win over Ringgold, obviously overtime game. So it was Rockmart's second overtime victory over Ringgold in 2 seasons. This is from the Georgia High School Football Daily, both saving what is now a 60-game region winning streak.
60 games
winning streak. Let that sink in for a minute.
That's amazing.
That's impressive. So just wanted to point that out, and also point out that I'm rolling with the Yellow Jackets in this game also. I go with Rockmart. All right, let's move on to the next game. We were talking about one of these teams earlier as we started the show today about being one of the most improved teams, which anybody that's followed the career of Coach Tommy Atha when he was at Darlington and now carrying over at Cedartown, that is certainly what you would expect with one of his teams, is they're going to be a team that just keeps getting better and better and better. And this Bulldogs team, I was talking to somebody in that community the other day, and they were just talking about how young this team is. And they faced a ton of adversity. They've taken advantage of the opportunities for growth. And again, that's just not surprising for people that know Coach Tommy Atha and what kind of a coach he is. And he's one of those guys that when you talk to people that have followed his career, one of the first things they're going to point out is how he gets the most out of whatever talent he's got. He's going to get every ounce out of what those kids can bring to the table and make them impactful players on the team. And so we're going to see this team continue to get better and better as each week goes on. And again, going back to the victory over Pepperell and the way that they were able to kind of grind it out at the end and come up with a stop. Let's see what they can do to build on that momentum going into this game. So I'm really curious to see how you see this one, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's one of the first steps you have to take, and Coach Atha's all over this. You're coming off an emotional win, and you've got to enjoy that and move on to the next one, because you're headed on the road. I think this is their first road game of the season as well. I'm pretty sure Berkmar was in Cedartown as well. Maybe I may be wrong there, but I think this will be their first road trip. So how do you handle business on the road? How do you stay in routine? I think that's important for Cedartown, and they're going to take on an Allatoona team that you look at their record again. 1-3, but at this time of the year, I just don't think you can put too much on that. Allatoona was a team that was very competitive. They've had a few down years, but I think they're getting better as well, and this game's in their house. So Cedartown's going to have to go in there, and these young players are going to have to show composure on the road, because I think they will be tested, but I like them to win.
And to your point, I mean, there was a decade or so, not that many years ago, where either they would win a championship or they'd be playing for one or in the semifinals or something like that. Every year they were a contender. The last few years have been kind of tough for Allatoona, but there's no weeks off. No question about that. And one of the things you got to be careful of here, if you're Cedartown, I believe they got Cass coming up next week, a little bit later on the road. They're going to be playing Carsville. There's some tough matchups coming up. So you got to just take it week by week, not get caught looking ahead, all those sorts of things that kind of become cliche that people talk about when they talk about games. But I think this team's going to be dialed in. I think they build off that momentum, and I think they want to carry that momentum over into region play, which begins this week. This is where the rubber meets the road, and they want to take advantage of it, and I think they do. I think Cedartown is going to pick up the road victory.
All right.
So there you have it.
No differences this week.
No differences so far this week, and I don't think we're going to have any. I really don't. Not to kill the suspense, but Tell us about this next matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. We got the Rome Wolves traveling to East Paulding. You know, with realignment, there's been some shakeup, but these two teams, extremely familiar with each other. They've had some battles over the years, and they share one very key component in common, and that's John Reed. He was at East Paulding and had a lot of success with the Raiders. Beat Rome.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was literally going to point out that since he's been at Rome, he's never lost to East Paulding. When he was at East Paulding, he never lost to Rome. So I thought that was pretty interesting fact.
That is an interesting fact, and this is a huge ball game between two teams. Like I said, this familiarity, they're gonna want to beat each other, and the Raiders, knowing that they've never beaten Coach Reed, I think they'll bring a little extra to this game. I think the Rome Wolves will too, and I think that second half last week, I think Rome found another gear. I think they found themselves on offense, and I think that mojo carries over to this game. They do have to go on the road, and this will be Rome's first road contest. They had the Corky Kell, which is a little bit of a different vibe at Barron Stadium, but this is the first road test. Young players, again, same thing I said about Cedartown. You got to handle business on the road, stay on the schedule. You know John Reed will have them ready for that. I think it's close, but I think Rome wins. Oh,
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I'm going to go Rome in this game. The offense really lit it up in that third quarter in particular. I heard the other day, I forget what the stat was, but in under a minute, they scored several touchdowns.
Yeah.
So they were very opportunistic in that game, and the confidence that they would have built by picking up that victory, I think, carries over into this one, and the preparation's always going to be there. So I'm going to go with the Wolves. I think they'll win. So we don't have any differences this week.
I know.
So
I'm not catching up on you.
I can rest easy.
That's right.
I got a 4-game lead going into the next week of picks. All right. Well, that's going to put a wrap on our show for today. We do invite you to stay tuned because we got the Coach Grove show coming up in just a little bit.
Shortly.
So,
30
don't go
minutes.
anywhere, folks. You want to stay near your devices and get ready for that. But, Ian, thanks. It's been a lot of fun picking the games with you again, man.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great week of action.
All right. That puts a wrap on this edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Have a great weekend, everybody.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.